What we like to do is to kind of introduce the topic of engagement, bring it into the room, and I'm sure you've all got your own personal views on what engagement is and what it isn't. You may well already be doing something with engagement, or perhaps have been for some time. So we'd like to get engagement into the room as a topic, take a look at it, make sure we understand the same thing about it, we share a common view, and really to build on the work that you're already doing, perhaps to take it forward to the next step. So please ask yourself the question, what can I use here? What is useful? Acknowledging that a lot of you are already coaches, a lot of you will already be focusing on engagement. So what is it that's additional, that we can help you with that's useful? Why is it important? So we really want to, perhaps answer a self-evident question. Why are we interested in engagement? What does it do for us as an organisation? And specifically then, how does coaching link to engagement? And we want to get into some practical hows really, some things that you can do and take away that means that you can positively impact engagement in your context. So what I'd like to do first of all is to just confirm understanding about what engagement is. And you will probably know that there's been a lot of studies around engagement, particularly in the NHS. It's had quite a focus over the last few years. And there are a lot of definitions. Generally, if you get underneath the detail, the actual heart of it is very much the same across all of those studies and all of those opinions really on what engagement is or it isn't. It's about this idea of going the extra mile. It's not just delivering against your job description, it's more than that. People are putting discretionary effort into their work because they choose to. So they're doing more actually than the job description demands of them. And they're doing that willingly and with a good heart. So they're contributing more of their energy, creativity and passion on the job. And clearly that's why engagement is important to organisations generally, not just you here in the NHS. Now this is an interesting point. This study is pointing at the fact that perhaps as an organisation we're hoping that new people coming into the organisation may have different attitudes, a different focus, different capability, different ability, different attitude, different mindset. But the King's Fund is saying actually, hang on, probably 10 years down the track from here, we're going to have largely the same people we have now. So if we're expecting change and progress to come from new people, new blood coming into the organisation, that's probably unlikely to make a significant impact. It will have some, obviously, but actually we're going to be working with the people we've got largely. Then there's a comment from South West Yorkshire Partnership, and it's talking about engagement is not an option really. It's not just a good thing. It's a necessary part of your success as an organisation. Now I know you know this, and it's not our intention to teach grandma here, but I feel it's worth just remaking these points. So there's this direct correlation between the things that are important to you in your organisation and engagement as a factor which affects those. And this really kind of points at the heart of this topic, which is how do we have people engaged? How do we get to people's heart in terms of this topic? And it's not about control, it's not about efforting, it's not about direction. Some of those things are important, but actually if you want people to give of themselves, then it is about this idea of lighting a fire within somebody. So this is an interesting debate here about actually, what can help or hinder engagement. Is it how people are treated as employees, or is it the experiences and the, if you like, the satisfaction that they gain from making a contribution, and making a difference? Which is it that comes first? So it's a really interesting point, isn't it? There are some misalignments, I guess, that I feel it's useful to draw to your attention here. And the challenge is really to align perception and action. So the NHS Staff Survey 2012 stated that 69% of CEOs surveyed strongly agreed that the level of staff engagement was in their top 3 priorities as a chief executive. So from the top, this is a strategic priority and one of the top 3. The perception is, however, that only 35% of staff say communication between senior managers and staff is effective. So clearly, the senior management of the organisation have this as a priority. The perception of the organisation doesn't feel that way. So something is misaligned here. 74% of people say that they're able to make improvement suggestions. Only 26% say senior managers act on it. So again, there's a sort of say-do gap. And it's something that I'd like you to be thinking about, really, in terms of what's it like where you are. Does that say-do gap exist? Why is that? What's getting in the way of the alignment between the great intentions, from the senior management of the organisation to the people that work in it? What's disconnected there? And again, I'm hoping that by the end of today, you'll start to get a sense that coaching with a focus on engagement is one of the things that can start to reconnect these things. If we look at this kind of graphically, we start to get an understanding of the opportunity. And it's those kind of almost 2/3 of people, that's 64%, who are the floating voters. They're neither engaged nor disengaged. And probably, if we are going to invest effort and attention, it's those people that are the opportunity. Clearly, the people that are already engaged, are contributing now. And we must not make assumptions about those people. We must not take them for granted, and I'll come on to that in just a moment. So we can't ignore it and feel that it's a job done for those people that are engaged. But clearly the opportunity is to encourage those people that are in that orange sector there, to put some focus there, because they are open to influence, your influence in this regard. Probably the disengaged, there's not going to be a lot of payback for working there, and at 4%, they're a relatively low factor. So hopefully you're getting a sense that there is a real opportunity here, and that it's worth going for. And again, you may already have come to that conclusion for yourselves. Again, this is a very simple idea, and one that I'd like to share with you. There are 3 components to engagement: the thinking part, the feeling part, and the acting part. And people need to be connected to all of these 3 components to be engaged. The thinking part is how well employees understand and focus on their roles and responsibilities. So how well do they understand the job? How clear are the expectations around delivery to them? It's this kind of cerebral intellectual connection and understanding about what they're there to do. The technical aspects of that, the hard areas of delivery. So it's appealing to their understanding, really, of their job. The feeling part, is perhaps often the part that it's easy to miss out, in a busy working life. And that's how much personal connection people have with the job that they do. So how do they feel about it? Why do they do it? Why is it important to them? Because there needs to be a mutuality here. For me to contribute more of myself, I need to get something back in terms of development, satisfaction, feeling of making a difference, a feeling of being valued. And that's a very individual thing. It is not a one-size-fits-all. The reasons why people are here and working in the NHS, are very specific to them. So we start to understand really that as managers and leaders of people, we need to start to understand what that is, the motivation for people. The acting part is how well they perform in their roles. So it's getting on with it, it's doing it. So they may well know what it is that they need to do. They may feel connected and feel that it's important. But the final step is, how do we encourage them to get into action around it and do the right things? What we're really looking for is this sweet spot where people are feeling cared for and understood and adequately supported in dealing with the pressure and the workload, and are also properly engaged in what they're doing. So that's where we have most productive and happy people. So our job really around this idea of well-being and sustaining engagement into the future is that we need to understand the pressure on people. What do those initiatives, those restructures, this continuous change, what does that mean to the people that work for us and around us? And what does that mean to them on an individual level? So how close are we to them? How well do we understand their tolerance for pressure? How close are they to their limits? And if we acknowledge that that pressure is unlikely to go away in general terms, how can we help them? How can we support people to stay resourceful and resilient to pressure? I'd like to focus on one of the elements of engagement that is always in the top 3 in any study you care to look at, and this is the effect of the line manager. And here we're sort of asking the question, is the line manager a hero or a villain in this? Because actually it can go either way. So when it comes to actions that can support both enablement and energy, few things have as much immediate impact as the relationship with one's direct manager. You probably know this. What makes a difference in terms of how it feels to come to work is the relationship you have with your boss. And there's a lot of studies that show actually people can tend to leave bosses rather than leave organisations, if they're unhappy. They don't feel fulfilled or valued. But essentially it's about understanding and working with individuals. It's about creating clarity of roles. You remember that thinking part in the engagement, the 3 factors of engagement? Making sure people really are clear on what they're there to do. It's about supporting them to develop and grow, as far as is possible. It's about being available to listen and demonstrating value. So that piece about employees having a voice. Managing workload and resources, removing barriers and solving conflicts. This is the sustainable element, the piece around well-being. Have and use strong emotional intelligence. So it's working with that softer side, that more difficult stuff. A bit more on that in a minute. And encourage self-engagement. There can be a sense that as a manager I feel I've got to engage everybody. It's down to me, it's on my shoulders, it's another job I've got to do on my to-do list. But actually we need to encourage people to self-engage, and to self-motivate. We can't make people dependent on us, either for our own sake or theirs. So the challenge really for managers is developing this idea of a blended style. So over here we have the common sense manager who's working with the rational, the tangible, on the engagement model, the thinking part if you like. And in some cases the easier part of being a manager in a sense, because it's all about this kind of rational analysis capability, is dispassionate, can make decisions, directs and delegates. All of these things that are, if you like, the harder, more tangible things that need to get done in an organisation for it to run. So these things have to happen. It's part of a manager's job. What is easy, however, to miss or do less of is this. So this is where managers are focusing more on the emotional and the intangible. It's the engagement aspect of the job. And this is where things can get more difficult and challenging, because it's that difficult mucky bit, in terms of how people feel, and understanding their motivations. It's so easy to cancel that one-to-one session or that conversation because I've got to get back to writing that report. It's the important and not urgent stuff. So here we've got a description, if you like, of some of the things that are going to sit within that part of a manager's role. And this is a bit like being ambidextrous, writing with both hands. For a modern manager in a modern organisation like the NHS, managers have to be master of both of these things.
If we're coaching someone who is predominantly a rational manager, there's an opportunity for me in all of this to work on what are the questions that you ask somebody who is a rational manager to open their eyes to the possibilities of being an engaging manager without producing your catalogue. Here's all the evidence that shows why you should be an engaging manager, so go and do this.
We've been analysing our survey results and that's exactly what they're saying, that there seems to be a gap between the vision and the managers that are managing them. They feel that sometimes when they raise concerns they're not being addressed, but more importantly it was that same do down. We know we've got some work to do and I'm sure others have.
I think my reflection was that coming back to the staff survey thing 4 years ago when I joined my trust, we were bottom of the pile nationally for the type of trust we are. And I'm reassured that a lot of the things that were shared are the kinds of things that we've been working on, but I would just like to kind of say how long it takes, and that kind of resilience and well-being you have to also have, I think, in your leaders, because 4 years on we've improved, our staff survey is getting better, which is reflecting lots of hard work, 4 years on, we're middle of the pile. We've got another 4 years, I think, before we will get to the top of that pile. And culture change does take time, and I think these things are long term. I don't mean financial investment, although they probably are, but personal commitment.